Good day all. Welcome back to this module. In this module, we are module 2. We'll be looking at natural disasters, geospatial and aquatic events. Now, in this module, we'll be covering the following objectives. By the end of this module, you'll be able to learn how to define key natural disasters, earthquakes, landslides, tsunamis, and floods, and their underlying geospatial and aquatic causes. You'll be able to understand the response protocol required for each type of disaster. You'll also be able to recognize the roles and responsibilities of stakeholders in managing these disasters. You'll also be able to apply the knowledge gained in this module to assess the vulnerabilities of different communities and propose effective response plans. Now, by way of introduction, natural disasters, especially those caused by geospatial and aquatic events, present significant challenges for communities worldwide. Earthquakes, landslides, tsunamis, and floods are events that result from the Earth's physical processes, and each requires a unique response strategy. This module covers the key disaster types, their impacts, and how various stakeholders can respond to reduce harm and ensure safety. By understanding tectonic, geological, and hydrological threats, learners can develop a clear approach to mitigation, preparedness, and response strategies. Now, let's go to natural disasters. What are natural disasters? Now, natural disasters are catastrophic events caused by natural processes of the earth, which can result in the loss of life, property, and environmental damage. These events occur due to geophysical and hydrological or atmospheric forces that can take many forms, including earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, and landslides. You can see these are examples of natural disaster. You can see a flood picture and all. Now, what are some of the impacts of geospatial and aquatic disasters? Now, earthquakes, landslides, tsunamis, and floods pose significant risk to human safety, infrastructure, and the environment. Now, let's look at what they call tectonic and geological threats, starting with earthquakes. Now, this is an image of an earthquake, the rumbles of a building after earthquake has occurred. Now, let's look at what causes earthquakes. Now, this is the sudden release of energy in the Earth's crust due to tectonic plate movement. Stress builds up along the fault lines in the tectonic plates and is released in form of seismic waves under the earth crust. Now, what are some of the impacts of earthquake on the community? Now, we have structural damage, that means damage to buildings. We have loss of life. People can lose their life when an earthquake occurs. We have economic disruption, and we have secondary effects like tsunamis. A tsunami can follow an earthquake. Now, what are some of the responses to earthquakes? Search and rescue operations, emergency medical care, public awareness, and earthquake resistant building codes is a response to earthquake. Either you search and you rescue operations, or you have emergency medical care set up, or you do public awareness, or you create buildings that are earthquake resistant. Now, what are some of the earthquake effects and responses? Let's look at the short-term effects. There's structural damage, like I said, it destroys buildings and structures. There's loss of life. People can die in earthquakes. There's injuries, there's displacement, and there's trauma. Some persons might not recover. They might have psychological effect on them. And what are some of the long-term effects? Economic losses, slow recovery, rebuilding efforts. Now, what are some of the response protocol? Like I said, search and rescue, medical assistance, public education, rebuilding efforts. Now, an example of an earthquake is the 2011 Tohoku earthquake that happened in Japan. You can search that up to know more about it. Now, we'll be looking at um, landslides, another tectonic and geographical and geological threat. What are landslides? Landslide is the movement of rock, soil, or debris down a slope due to gravity. It is usually triggered by heavy rainfalls, earthquakes, or human activities. You can see in the image, this is an example of a landslide. You can see this was not always like this, right? You can see that there is a movement of rock or soil falling down from a part of the hill down to the city, right? Now, what are some of the causes of the landslide? Heavy rainfall, erosion is one of the major causes of a landslide. Now, I don't know if you have seen when you're walking through a road and you see that the road is just like one part of the road is just lower than the other, or one part is washed off. This is an example of a landslide. They have seismic activities like erosion, like I said. We have volcanic eruptions. We have deforestation when you cut down trees in an area. We have construction. Now, what are some of the impacts of landslide? There's destruction of infrastructure. It can cover up buildings. You can see it's about covering up this building there. Then there's casualties. People can lose their life. There's also displacement and also economic loss. Now, what are some of the responses to a landslide? Evacuation, search and rescue, just like earthquakes. Then slope stabilization. That is artificial stabilization of the slope. As the sand on the rock is going down because of gravity, you can do slope stabilization. There's also early warning systems. Now, let's look at the next, which is tsunamis. This is an oceanic threat. What are tsunamis? These are large ocean waves caused by underwater earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. They travel across oceans at high speeds, but increase in height as they approach shore. This is an example of a tsunami. It's where large ocean waves that are caused by underwater earthquakes they will just go up like that and just it's like a wave, but this is deeper than a wave. Like just go up and about to cover. You can see this as an example. About to cover a city there. Now, what are some of the impacts of a tsunami? There's coastal flooding. You know, a coast of a sea, right? That's the shore. Yeah. You can cover it. There's destruction of infrastructure, like you can see in this picture. About to cover up this whole city. There's loss of life. People can die in the process. There's also environmental damage. Now, what are some of the responses to tsunamis? Early warning systems. We have evacuation plans. We also have building to tsunami resistant infrastructure. Now let's look at flooding. What is flooding? This is an hydrological threat. This is a typical example of hydrological threat, right? Hydrological threat is threat that has to do with water. Now, what causes floods? Flood occurs when water overflows its boundaries, often due to rainfall, snow melt, or dam failure. You can see this is an example of a flood. This is a well flooded area. Now, coastal floods arise from storm surges and river flow from heavy rainfall. When rain falls too much in an ocean and can just flood the bank of the ocean, and that can lead to a coastal flooding. Now, what are some of the impacts of flooding? There's destruction of homes, infrastructure, economic loss, and health risk. Now, what are some of the response to floods? There should be a rescue operation after the flood occurs. There should be temporary shelters given to victims affected. There should be medical care in case there are injuries. There should also be water purification and there should be disease control because flooding can lead to diseases from the sea. Now, what are some of the roles of stakeholders in disaster management? There are four stakeholders in this case. We have the individuals, we have the government, we have the hospitals, and we have the businesses. Now, for the individuals, what should they do in the case of natural disaster? They should be prepared. Now, before flood, earthquake occurs, they should put down protocols in place. That is preparedness, follow safety protocols, and evacuating on time. Once a flood occurs, they should be prepared and they should also follow safety protocols and also evacuate on time. So on their end, an individual should be prepared for these natural disasters. Now, what about the government? Now, for the government, there should be regulation, early warning systems, emergency coordination, and also recovery efforts. Now, what does this mean? It means that on the part of the government, there should be regulation in place to ensure that once this thing happens, this is what should be done, right? This is what should be carried out. Now, early warning systems is setting up early warning systems in areas that is prone to occur. Then there's also what they call emergency coordination, then recovery effort. After it has happened, what does the government need to do? You can set up camps, shelters, and all. What about hospitals? What is their role in disaster management in terms of natural disasters? Now, they should give medical care, like we saw, like I explained. There should be trauma treatment because some of these victims can be traumatized psychologically from this event that occurred. There should also be disease control during floods because flooding or earthquakes and all it can come with their own disease or floods, like I said. Now, for businesses, there should be infrastructure protection. These companies around where this natural disaster occurs, they should have infrastructure protection. There should also be recovery planning and community support to these individuals that are affected by this. Now, these are the roles of the stakeholders in disaster management in the case of natural disaster. Now, what are some of the responses to earthquakes, to tsunamis, and floods? For earthquakes, they should evacuate the vulnerable buildings, provide medical care, and establish shelters. I already explained this. This is the role of government, individuals, hospitals, and businesses. In the case of tsunamis, they should evacuate coastal areas, those areas close to the sea and all. They should evacuate it, use early warning systems. They should also rebuild infrastructure. What about for floods? They should evacuate low-lying areas, provide medical and humanitarian assistance, then restore infrastructure. Now, what are some of the mitigation and preparedness for natural disasters? For earthquakes, they should enforce earthquake resistant building codes, conduct seismic assessments. For landslide, there should be stabilized slopes. They should also implement early warning systems. Before it happens, there should be a warning and all. There should be a system like that. Now, for tsunamis, they should build coastal protection. They should develop tsunamis resistant infrastructure. And for floods, they should strengthen flood defenses, implement floodplain zoning laws. Now, what are some of the case studies we'll be looking at? We'll be talking about earthquakes, landslide, and what are some of the case studies that happened in real life? Now, we have the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Now, what was the response action? There was immediate evacuation, there was rescue, and there was recovery efforts. Now, let's look at a landslide case. There was a 2008 Sichuan earthquake triggered landslide in China. Now, what was the response from the government? There was slope stabilization and enhanced building codes. What about tsunami? There was a 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. It happened in India. And what was the response? There was tsunami detection and improved evacuation poster system post disaster. What about flood? It was a 2010 Pakistan flood. Now, what was the response? There was a floodplain management and flood defense system. And by way of conclusion, in this module, natural disaster caused by geospatial and aquatic events present distinct challenges to communities. Through appropriate risk management, mitigation, preparedness, and response strategy, we can minimize the loss of life and property. The collaboration between individuals, government, hospitals, and businesses is crucial in ensuring effective disaster management. This module cover these basics. Now, after this module, it's an assessment session that you can go to. There's two, you can do the quiz, there's 15 multiple choice questions, and you are asked to also do a short report where you submit as at the due date. That's it. I will see you in the next module.